Um, Welcome, everyone. I'm Charity Counts. I'm the Executive Director of the Association of Midwest Museums. Thank you for joining us today for the 2024 Groundbreakers Award virtual event. Before we begin our program, I invite my co-host for this evening, DeAndrea Matthews, to offer a land acknowledgement.
Good evening, everyone. As she mentioned, my name is DeAndrea Matthews. I am a member of the Board of Directors for the Association of Midwest Museums, and I'm also a member of the Awards Committee. In this era of virtual meetings, when digital spaces may substitute our physical sense of place, it is important to redirect our attention to the land we each occupy in this moment and honor the Indigenous people who called it home. Because I am located in Detroit, Michigan, I invite you to join me in acknowledging the ancestral and contemporary homeland of the Three Fires Confederacy. These sovereign lands were granted by the Ojibwa, Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Wyandot nations in 1807 through the Treaty of Detroit. We honor all tribes with a connection to Detroit, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, DeAndrea. All right, I have a few housekeeping notes, the fun stuff before we dive into the best part of the program. This event is really an opportunity for all of us to celebrate a recipient together, members of their, museum community, their peers, but also members of their local community. But it's also a chance for us to, learn about them and their work. You're welcome to participate as you're comfortable today. That could mean having your video on or off, whichever you choose. The main thing is, no matter what you choose, please keep your audio turned off until we prompt you to make some noise for our recipient today. And there will be points in the program to do that. We encourage you to react to what you're hearing today. And when we invite you to unmute, cheer loudly, make some noise. But of course, you can also participate by keeping your video off or audio off, and then using like the Zoom reaction tools to celebrate using emojis or icons. You can have your video on, but your audio off and snap your fingers or wave. There are a lot of different ways you can participate. You can also, during the interview portion of the event, use the chat to ask questions or even comment on what you're hearing, or you can raise your hand or use your reaction tools to raise your hand, and I'll call on you at that time to ask your question. We also have enabled captions, and you can turn those on or off by clicking the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom menu screen. At least on my computer, it's at the bottom. It might be on the side for you. For those of you who are getting to know AMM first time through this event, I also wanted to give you a little bit of background on us. We were founded in 1927 by a professional from Michigan, actually. And we started as an association for Michigan and Indiana museums, and then grew to cover 8 states, which is the region we serve today. And our community includes traditional museums and historic sites, as well as art and cultural centers, science centers, zoos, libraries, children's museums, you name it. It's under that umbrella. They're a part of our organization in the Midwest. We host many virtual programs every year. My favorite is always the awards series. It's just so much fun, such a joy to be able to celebrate all of our honorees through these events that bring together different communities to celebrate them that they're connected with. That includes staff and colleagues, family and friends, all of you. We're so glad you're here. And finally, I want to acknowledge everyone involved in today's program. In a few minutes, I'm going to spotlight them so you can see them at the top of your screen if you use gallery view, or that they show up big on your screen during the conversation today. My co-host is DeAndrea Matthews, who you've met, but representing the Detroit Historical Society, we've got Rebecca Salmon Witt, Tracy Irwin, Billy Walwinkle, and Rachel Francisco. And then we have Emmanuel Smith, also Mr. E and the D, joining us today, one of the featured entrepreneurs in the hustle. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic back to DeAndrea and spotlight our guests today and get the awards program started.
Thanks so much, Charity. The Groundbreakers Award recognizes organizations who have pushed past boundaries, broken conventions, addressed oppressive systems and structures, or creatively engaged partners to effect change. The results of these groundbreaking projects are usually greater service to diverse communities, new thinking about systems or practices, or advancement of social justice work. As a proud Detroit museum person, I am very excited to be presenting this year's Groundbreakers Award to my colleagues at the Detroit Historical Society for their project called The Hustle, celebrating Detroit's unsung entrepreneurs. This two-year initiative chronicled the inspiring Detroiters who rose to success in some unexpected industries, uncovering and documenting the stories of the men and women whose work has made everyday life in Detroit special while helping to create a deep sense of hometown pride. And I am proud to be a native Detroiter myself. The Hustle was groundbreaking because it leaned into contemporary collecting and storytelling to uncover the stories of Detroit's unsung Black entrepreneurs and bring them in droves to the museum to see those stories, their stories represented. The Hustle is the latest of the Society's efforts to be intentionally inclusive in its storytelling, dispelling for good an old notion that the stories in its museums were only those of the industrialists who once made Detroit famous. The initiative included a series of exhibitions that were complemented by public events and education programs, celebrations, and a day-long resource summit. By the time it concluded, the Hustle had drawn over 73,000 people to the Detroit Historical Museum, and thousands more participated in the project's virtual programs and events. During today's event, we will have the opportunity to learn more about this project as we unpack the process and the results with the team involved. So at this time, I invite everyone joining us today to unmute themselves or to use your Zoom reaction icons to join me in a round of applause for the Detroit Historical Society, our 2024 Groundbreakers Award recipient. Congratulations.
Yay!
Thank you for sharing in that moment with me with the applause, the icons, the congratulations. So now I invite Rebecca Solmanen-Witt to say a few words on behalf of the museum.
Thank you so much. You know, nobody spends years creating an all-encompassing, deeply engrossing, super challenging program just for the award potential. But man, it sure feels good to be acknowledged by your peers. And we are just thrilled to be here in front of you all tonight. The Hustle really was all of those things for the Detroit Historical Society. We have about 60 staff members, and it involved all of us. A bunch of us are online here with you today. We made it hard on purpose, this project. It was a chance for us to stretch after the pandemic, which kind of confined us, as it did all of our museum folks for a couple of years. It was definitely hard. It was also one of the most satisfying projects that we've done in a long time. I think that is precisely because we really challenged ourselves to reach outside of our comfort zone, but we also challenged ourselves to be disciplined about consistently applying our highest standards to this project. The three pillars that we use to lift our work every day are diversity and inclusion, fiscal sustainability, and best-in-class visitor experience. Every exhibit, every program and strategy that we included in the Hustle began with the rigorous application of those principles. That's why we crowdsourced nomination. That's why we engaged a huge and diverse advisory panel that was sometimes a little unruly. That's why in the end, the final expression of the project was so joyful and such a feel-good opportunity that included so many people. It's certainly not to say that everything we tried was successful or that we do it all the same way the next time. But our willingness to step outside of our comfort zone and our insistence that in doing so, we not lose track of our principles turned out to be the magic combination that really did create the huge success that the Hustle became. We exceeded nearly every single one of our key performance initiatives. Including visitation, 73,086 people came and saw a Hustle exhibit between October of 2022 and April of 2024. We completed 6 virtual programs. We had planned to do 4. We did 6. 4,468 people participated in those virtual programs. 4 educational programs were completed. We reached 120 students through those programs. Our Hustle Gala sold 495 tickets. That's a big gala for us. So almost everybody who bought a ticket came. So we were really excited about that. And our Hustle Resource Summit garnered 925 registrations from across the region on a day, incidentally, we didn't know this at the time, where there were 2 other entrepreneurship summits going on that same day. So we were really excited that nearly 1,000 people chose our project to come and support and learn from that day. Just, I guess, to close, thank you so much for recognizing the Detroit Historical Society with the Groundbreakers Award. We felt like it was groundbreaking for us. It has changed the way we think about the contemporary work that we do. And we hope that the Hustle will continue to inspire, and that this award will help us share the work even more broadly. That's really one of our big objectives, is to share our methods, our successes, but also the hard lessons we learned along the way. And this is one of the things that we're excited that will hopefully give us the opportunity to do that more. So thank you so very much. I'd like to introduce our team members who are here with me today, and give them an opportunity to kind of tell a little bit about their role in the project. So Tracy Irwin, our Chief Exhibitions and Enrichment Officer, maybe you will start first.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having us. As Rebecca stated, it's just really exciting to be recognized by your peers. So this is just amazing. So thank you so much. My role and my team, we really did the fabrication, the exhibitions. What you ended up seeing when you came to see the Hustle was a series of 5 exhibits. It started, as Rebecca mentioned, in the fall of 22, and we launched a smaller exhibit. We broke it into different categories. So after the crowdsourcing was done, after the nominations came through, and we had so many, and we had 800 nominations come through, which was just amazing. And then our committees did the really, really difficult task of whittling it down to the 34 honorees that actually ended up making it into the exhibit. And then we paired them by category, and those categories rotated through our center stage exhibit. And so a lot of that was my role and my team's role. Sometimes the exhibit had 9 people, sometimes 8 people, and it was almost a teaser exhibit. So it's a teaser of what's to come. And they were really fun because we had an open house for each one. So the community got to come, lots of great pictures, lots of families coming and standing around their panels. We were able to collect artifacts from each individual. And any of you who work in exhibitions, you know that working with people, at least in a history museum, like, who are not dead, it's just very different, right? So that was a way to stretch ourselves. We were able to gather artifacts, and these were key things. Maybe it was a motif that the entrepreneur used. Maybe it was something from their origins that really spoke to them, and they really wanted that to showcase their story. But it was just a little taste. And then all of those came together in a larger exhibition that ran for almost a year in our Wrigley Hall, which showcased all 34. So that was a challenge. It's bringing together 34 people from all walks of life, and really showcasing their talents and what they've achieved and how they've really moved their communities forward through their work. And so that was really lovely. What I do, I'm a designer, in addition to kind of working with the team to develop the story. So we took Billy's great work and put it on panels, and he'll talk about that. He did an amazing job too. He's very modest, but he did an amazing, or he's very humble, I should say. He did an amazing job. But again, we really thank you. One of the other parts I should note that was really exciting, we got to work with 3 different photographers as part of this project. And initially it was going to be 1 photographer, and our advisory committee really sort of helped us. They advised us at this point, and we brought 2 others in, and they had very different styles. And I think that benefited the exhibition when it all came together, because every single person was photographed in a different way. And it was, I think it just added to the texture and the feel of the space. And so I think that was really a great element to add. We did some video, and that all made it into the final exhibition. So hopefully you guys can check it out online soon. We've got a virtual exhibit that Billy put together that really came together very well. We have a great book that Rebecca worked on as, Leave Behind. So that's all I have to say. Rebecca, if it's cool with you, I'll kick it over to Billy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Billy Walwinkle. I'm the curator for this project, and my entire job was make sure that we had enough content and the right content that we could do these exhibits in the correct way and give them the weight they needed. That was incredibly difficult to do because the vast majority of the people we honored aren't in a history book. They aren't even really in the newspaper. Fortunately for us, though, here at the Detroit Historical Society, we've been deeply investing in our oral history program for the last decade. And we have hundreds and hundreds of oral histories under our belt. So that meant we were well equipped to do this. We were also extremely fortunate that with the grant funding and with the funding that we got, we were able to invest in new equipment to make sure that we did them even easier. And it was great. It was kind of a little bit of a blitz to get all the oral histories done as quickly as we needed them to. But it was awesome learning about not only the folks that we were honoring, but also the folks who we were honoring thought that we should also honor. So when we honored a mother-daughter team, they made sure they were both connected. We honored one woman who brought her sister to the interview and said, I wouldn't be here without my sister, so you're going to talk to her too. We had a whole team of folks come where it was a mother, son, and their business partner. So the 3 of them were honored at the same time. We weren't going to restrict that. We were going to make sure that we were telling the story that they wanted us to tell. And my coworker Lily and I, we did the oral histories, and we made sure we were as thorough as possible. But also, we wanted to make sure that we were covering all of our bases. So not only did we do the oral histories, but we asked about artifacts, and we made sure that, like, hey, you brought up this giant wrench for some reason 3 times. Do you still have that wrench? And can I borrow it for the exhibit? That kind of stuff. So we did the 4 center stage exhibitions. We did the larger exhibition, and we also made sure that we were intentional about having the people we were honoring be the front of the story. So when we did media, when we did projects, when we did social media posts, all that stuff, we made sure the oral histories our honorees did were front and center. And if the oral histories teased something that someone wanted, we made sure we got the honoree in front of them. We also needed to make sure that we had enough to kind of keep the exhibit lively. And fortunately enough for us, our honorees had the same kind of track where they got the idea, they got started, got going, but they all went about it in such different ways, in such exciting ways, that their stories wrote themselves. It was an honor to be able to be entrusted with telling this history. Also, I'm very thankful to one of our honorees for rolling the dice on us, because this is very contemporary. Spoiler, we had one of our honorees close up shop before the exhibit was even over. So this is how fast paced and how quickly things move sometimes. And it was a great honor to be a part of it with them.
Thanks, Billy.
And I don't know who to pass it to next.
Let's pass it to Rachel.
Thank you. Hello, all. I'm Rachel Francisco. I am the marketing manager at the Detroit Historical Society. I actually joined the project partway through. So I jumped on a very fast moving train, and it was just so exciting to be part of this whole project. So I'm going to share a little bit about what we did around social media, and our digital projects around it. So we ended up focusing most of our dollars on supporting the crowdsourcing nominations, our resource summit, and the gala, spreading the word about all those things. We allocated about 60% into those efforts, and then we put the remaining 20% each towards media sponsorships and other initiatives. So for the most part, we spent most of our money trying to communicate directly with people. In between, we concentrated on earned media, word of mouth, and 2 media sponsorships, one with an AM radio station championed by host Mark Lee, and the other with the Michigan Chronicle, which is Detroit's Black-owned newspaper. We shared information through emails, both targeting to specific lists and to our entire mailing list of over 16,000. And we also did it through our social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. We found that digital worked absolutely best for us in all cases throughout the entire project. This was particularly true for the crowdsourcing part of the nominations from the community. We found that it was difficult to manage the physical distribution, pickup, and logging of forms that were left in drop boxes. But fortunately for us, the vast majority of the nominations came in online. We designed a look and feel for our digital campaigns that we maintained across platforms. Billy, do you have some pictures for me right now? We had a fantastic logo designed by Shayla Johnson of Scarlet Crane Creations, a Black Detroit-based graphic and textile designer. And that perfectly encapsulated the sense of energy but grounded in the literal streets of Detroit. The logo features a map of the heart of the city. This strong visual identity became the cornerstone of our campaigns, helping to unify all of our materials and create a seamless experience for our audiences. It not only reflected the vibrant spirit of Detroit, but also communicated our mission in a way that was both authentic and visually compelling, making it instantly recognizable to those who engage with our content. Our media sponsorships didn't provide the consistent coverage we'd hoped for. However, building relationships with reporters and leaning into earned media worked much better. We found that leveraging the networks of our honorees turned out to be a surprisingly effective strategy. They were eager to share information about the exhibition and programs with their networks, and their generosity in doing so helped spread the word. We will definitely be expanding our digital outreach for the next round, providing expanded asset packages for partners, sponsors, and past honorees and nominees throughout the cycle. Another strategy we'll be leaning into next time will be encouraging honorees to generate their own content, including video and social media posts. By having them share in their own voices, we can amplify the authentic personal connection they have with the exhibition and the project, while also expanding our reach through their networks. This approach will complement the content we share, creating more dynamic and engaging experiences for our audiences. Our main in-person outreach last time was a public press conference at the Detroit Historical Museum, which worked well for the launch. This time, we plan to host a few smaller events organized by past honorees in neighborhoods across Detroit. We're hoping this approach, combined with the aforementioned expanded digital campaign, will help us reach even deeper into the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Now, the last member of our team here that I want to introduce, we're really excited that one of our honorees, Emmanuel Smith, Mr. E in the D, is here to join us today and share some of his experience as an honoree of the program. Mr. E.
Hey, how you guys doing? My name is Emmanuel, Mr. E. Smith. I am a family man, and all of that good stuff. But outside of that, I am an edutainer. And with that, wait, is this my time to talk?
You'll get some direct questions too, but you can just kind of introduce yourself and kind of how you participated in the program right now.
It was a kind of silence, so I was like, is this my time? I'm Emmanuel Smith. It's a pleasure to see everyone here today.
Passing it back to you, Charity.
Yeah, thanks. Billy, you can stop sharing screen. I think this has been great to watch all the photos of the project scroll by. Thank you, to Rebecca, Billy, Rachel, Tracy, and Mr. E, for being here and for kind of filling us in on your role in the project. One of the things we like to do in these events is to dig a little deeper, ask some questions, and just kind of learn a little bit more. I guess you can kind of consider it a behind the scenes look a little bit more. I'm going to be asking some questions that I'm curious about that I think especially museum people might be interested in, but I encourage everybody who's on with us today to drop questions that they have for our recipients in the chat, or like I said, raise your hand if you want me to call on you to comment or ask a question. Feel free to do that. I'll fold that into the discussion for the remainder of the event here. I actually, so Emmanuel, I want to start with you. I think before I kind of get into more logistical things with members of the museum team, it's always great to kind of talk with community partners and get your perspective. I'm so glad you could be here and that you can share a little bit more about what you did in the project or how you were connected to it. I know you started to introduce yourself a little bit there. You want to give us a little bit more about what aspects of your story were featured in the exhibit? What people learned about you, the part of this project.
Sure. Thank you guys. Once again, thank you guys for having me here. And I'm just so honored to be a part of this great moment in time. So some of the things that people learned about me was I'm an edutainer, and a lot of people didn't know that. Even people that I worked with, they didn't know the behind the scenes work that I did, which is I create media, audio and visual media to help students and their families just really be excited about learning and family time. So just providing different learning tools. I would say that I am a great connection of vintage. I was going to say neo-retro. I am the neo-retro PBS, the new retro PBS. That's the aim I'm going for. And yeah, that's the work that I do. Along with, I'm a mentor. I've been working with youth for over 20 years now, from schools to volunteering in different after school programs to what I'm doing right now, which is actually a connection from the hustle. I'm working with Downtown Boxing Gym now. So, yeah.
Okay. So what do you think makes this project so special? Obviously, we think it's great. Yeah. And the museum thinks it's great. And they've seen some awesome outcomes, but what makes it special to you?
So I'm gonna try to condense this all the way down to like a minute. What makes it so special is that being a part of, not only just being a part of a museum, that's like mind blowing within itself. But I got there because of the voice of my community. And that even speaks so much more. When you are a hustler in the city of Detroit, you do a lot of work that is behind the scenes that a lot of people do not know about. Some people really care about, and it seems like some people could really care less about. But to have this hustle be legitimized by a museum, it's just something that this wasn't like on my bucket list. Like this wasn't something that I even thought was something that I could add to my bucket list, because most time when I go to a historical museum, everybody is pretty much deceased, so to be alive and to be able to see myself in the museum too, it's just like, it's a mind-blowing experience to just be a part of and to be connected to.
That's awesome. I love that it's kind of like busted some myths, right? Like what a museum can be or is or might be. Thanks for sharing that. Are there aspects of the exhibit or the museum's approach to the process that you really appreciated as a community member?
Yeah, like I said, just the nomination process. I didn't know about my sister came across this and she was like, "Oh my God, Emmanuel, you have to be a part of this." And I was like, what are you talking about? And she sent me the nomination, just the write-up about it. And then she just started sending it out to like people that we knew. And like I said, it's just like to be seen in doing kind of behind the scene work, the hustle, the grind. It's just something that it's just it's hard to find words to describe. And just to know that not only you're not only validated or seen by like your family or your close loved ones, but a museum in your city, not only for you, but another participant of the hustle. She's a parent at the school I went to, and I was like, "Hey, I saw you." She was like, "I saw you too," and her kids were like, "It was just like it brought my community together." I stayed not too far from Livernois, and it was like some businesses I didn't even notice, and I was like, "Wow." Half of these businesses that I'm like right around the corner from, they're downstairs with me at the Detroit Historical Museum. And it just helped me to also, as a hustler, make more connections with people who are kind of doing the same work. So it's like a win-win.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of wins. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like everything you said has sort of resonated with me because I remember reading the nomination for this award and the comments from participants. And anyway, that's terrific. I also heard from the staff that your son was featured in the museum around the same time, but maybe in a different exhibit.
Yes.
And what was that like for you? So like two
Oh.
generations of your family in the museum.
So this is why I'm like, I love the Detroit Historical Museum. Like, what else could happen, right? So my mind is already blown, like I said, just from a historical standpoint. And then sometimes in communities, we kind of have like a thing with like museums and like what is being portrayed in museums, the actual factuals of some of the things that are, and like I'm in a museum and it's for something positive. Not only I'm in the museum, but like my community's in the museum. We're all alive and kicking it and seeing all this stuff. And then like my son tells me that they did a project with 826 Michigan, and they wanted to put the participants in the museum. So I'm like, wait a minute. Let me get this right, Elazar. The Detroit Historical Museum. He was like, yeah, Daddy, the museum that you're in. I'm like, what? So then we go down there and we see it, and he's literally in the room right next door to where my exhibit is. So it's just like it's cemented in time. Like my child, myself, like we were in a museum at the same time. Like, who does that? Who experiences something like that? Only in Detroit would you be able to experience and have something like that happen. So my family, like everybody, my friends, the students at my school, like everybody was just awestruck for like a year straight. Kids were running up to me, Mr. E, I saw you in the place. They didn't even know, like, put the two and two together, the historical museum. I saw you at that place. Like, what are you talking about? And like the parents, like everybody was excited for something positive. We all know there's a lot of just craziness going on in the world, and just to like have this ray of sunshine beaming down of positivity. I'm gonna stop talking. I'm going too much. It was phenomenal, and it is phenomenal because we will never forget that.
Yeah. Um, so I mentioned that everything you're saying reminded me of quotes that were in the nomination that came through comments from other entrepreneurs that were featured. And I will tell you right now that our committee members and DeAndrea can vouch for this. It brought tears to our eyes, reading these comments. And it's even getting me a little choked up right now. But I remember one comment in particular. It sounds a lot like what you're saying, Emmanuel. So it was Raphael Wright, owner of the neighborhood grocery, said, I'm a kid from the east side of Detroit who never would have thought in a million years I'd be moving the way I'm moving. More than that, you could have never convinced me that I'd be in a museum. And it might seem like a simple thing, but this is really something that museums sort of struggle with. And, our peers who are on this know this. And I'm really, I want to ask our museum staff who are on, so Rebecca and Tracy and Billy and Rachel, when you hear comments like this, like Raphael and Emmanuel, and saying, one, how surprised they were to be in the museum, but also they get to have this experience and have this new relationship as a result. And What were your first thoughts when you heard those comments? Like, were you choked up too?
Yeah. I mean, my first thought was thank goodness, because that's exactly what we hoped when we created the project. And it was so wonderful to hear that. I mean, right away, like at the launch event, I was standing next to a woman who was looking at a panel on the wall, and she said, I can't wait to bring my kids and my mom. I never would have thought that I'd be in a museum. And I mean, it was every exhibit, every opportunity that we had to bring people in. We heard that, and it was just so wonderful, because that's what we hoped. And that's really what the hustle was about. When it came right down to it for us, we want more and more people to come through our doors.
Yeah.
And we had a really wise trustee, the guy who originated the idea for the hustle, who said, look, you want more people to come through the doors of the museum, you got to put their stories in there. And that's what this was.
Yeah.
And I also,
Rachel?
oh, sorry.
It's all
I was
right.
going to say, I think what's so exciting too, sorry, Tracy.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
From the marketing side and the storytelling side is the storytelling, and the fact that, a lot of times it's us telling other people's stories because they're not here to tell them. And in this instance, sorry, that's plain. In this instance, we were just able to let people tell their own stories, and the excitement of facilitating that is really, really awesome. And the energy and all of the things engaged, it was not difficult to get people to share with us and tell us about their experiences in their lives. And that makes our jobs easy. It makes our jobs so enjoyable. How great are our jobs? Like, this is our job. We get to do this, and to be able to do this for other people is just really, it's awesome.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, this project was several years in the making, and it went through a series of evolutions, as exhibitions do, as you get closer. And it's not just an exhibition; it was a full project. This was, like Rebecca said at the very beginning, like it touched pretty much everybody at the society. But because what myself and my team does, we really focus on the exhibitions, and it really became, it started out as being history connected to contemporary history making. And as we moved further into it, and as we were working with the advisory committee and taking the nominations, and a member of my team took the nominations. I think she's on this call, Casey. Thanks, Casey, for all your amazing work with sorting through all of that, because it was craziness. But it really became like, we realized maybe 6 to 8 months before that we really need to make it about what's happening now. Like we don't necessarily need, it was going to be sort of the OG, and then what's happening now, and the rising star, and all of that, I think, would have diluted what really came out of this. And it organically became this amazing experience. And it was intentional. I don't want to take anything away from that, but it was really, it came together the way that the greatest exhibits come together. And that was, that's what I feel so good about, because I think everybody who was part of this, even the nominees who weren't finally selected, I think everybody was really happy to participate, happy to be there at the initial launch. We've stayed connected to so many of them. Many of them became our vendors for the great events that were pulled together. We've recommended them for other projects. Our new plumbing service was one of our honorees. Like we really holistically embraced sort of the movement that the hustle became. So yeah, for me, I think it's really gratifying. And we just hope that we continue to have connection with all of the honorees as we move forward. Because, like Mr. E said, his son being in 826 Michigan, that was not planned. That just happened. And, that's part of our community gallery experience. It's a totally different program. And he was there, and we were even shocked. We're like, wait, what? So it was this wonderful sort of serendipitous moment. But, you know, it's what we really try to do. We try to bring in as many organizations and groups serving the community as possible. And so it was just great. We feel really good about it.
Awesome.
It's also just this is a great example of why oral history work is so important and so impactful and how it can be used. And it's extremely fortunate that the costs and the energy required to do an oral history project have decreased dramatically in just the last 10 years. When I started doing oral history work and now, it is so much easier between the recording equipment, the software that's out there, transcription, everything. And when you have that as the backbone of the research you're doing, as the focal point of your project, it breathes just new life into it. You're not going to get the same emotions from a text or something like that. You need to hear their voices. You need to hear the slang. You need to hear how they tell their story, because that's what's going to connect the audience to what they're reading.
Mr. E, you were talking about feeling seen, right? Like essentially that's an outcome of this, and being a part of it as an entrepreneur that was featured in the hustle. Do you think that you have a new trust for the institution as well? Like, I think that that's something that we talk a lot about in the museum profession, that, you know, museums are generally highly trusted, but not by all groups, you know, not every community feels that way. And I don't know if trust was something that you see as an outcome of this for you or for your peers in the Detroit community of entrepreneurs.
I know that due to this experience, I can speak for myself, but I would like to kind of just start with like those that I helped to bring in. A lot of people that I told about our exhibit, they haven't been in the Detroit Historical Museum, or it was like a long time since they've been there. And I think seeing the exhibit, seeing not only just me, but just loved ones and people who like we known and we knew were in business, it just really, it put a new sense of like, this is a legitimate place. It's not just a museum, but it helped to redefine like what museums are. Like I said, I've never experienced anything like that. It put a new kind of taste on my palate for what museums can be, and it highered my expectations for museums, because now I've experienced this. I've been a part of this. My son's been a part of this. Like, we know, like, Detroit, we just hired, we made the stakes extremely high in terms of like what the experience of being in a museum should be like. So yes, I think that like I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna be quiet. I just went to pick up my book the other day, my hustle book, and I I can't just walk in and leave anymore, you know. So like I toured the museum, and even though like it's totally different downstairs, like I went through and was looking through just like the new exhibit, and I sat down, watched the videos, went upstairs. It's just like it's 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 a very legitimate place now, you know, that is near and dear. And I know it's not just for me, you know. Many other people that I invited, like I was inviting everybody to go to the museum. I was doing meetups, play dates, everything. We were meeting up there. Birthday parties, pictures, like we were doing it all. My aunt is right there. Hey, Auntie Carmina. We were and we weren't just in the museum and leaving. We were stopping. We were talking. It was just like I wouldn't say like a living room, but it was almost like a living room experience, you know.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that analogy. Thanks for sharing, Emmanuel. I do want to ask, you know, sort of process related questions for the museum team here, you know, with the time we have left. And I know, so Billy and Tracy, I know that you were responsible for, you know, the gathering the oral histories and producing the videos and all the content for the exhibit. I'm curious, I feel like a project like this, especially if you work on it for plan it for a long time and then your implementation is fast, right? And furious in many ways. Did you feel like you were like, did you approach this sort of iteratively, like you were gathering oral histories and then you were learning as you went, and maybe methods or the questions to ask? Did your process evolve or your approach evolve over the course of the project?
No, regarding like question to ask oral history wise and how to do them, how to schedule them, and how to structure them. We've done many oral histories. This is our, I don't know, 17th oral history project.
Okay.
So we had all that stuff structured well in advance. I made all the questions. I made sure we hit the beats. Because I was also working on the exhibitions. I knew how I wanted the exhibitions to be structured, so I knew what questions I needed answered and what was more important than others. And we had all of that before we went in to the oral histories. The only thing we didn't have going was kind of like artifact questions. Like, so those are all on the fly, and those are all follow-up questions and things like that. And before we went into the oral histories, we knew they were all going to be audio only, because the video component was going to be separate. Also, doing audio oral histories is significantly easier when you have people who are not used to being interviewed.
Mm.
If you're talking to folks who aren't used to being interviewed, only do audio, because if you have them on video, they're going to focus on, is the light in their eye? What's their body language look like? What's their hair look like? Do they do their makeup right? Is their tie straight? And if they're doing all of that, they're not thinking about the story they're telling you. So we wanted to make sure, especially because these folks were nervous. Some of them were confused, literally confused as to why we picked them. And I needed to get half of them out of sales pitch mode, because I'm like, you have already been selected. We will not take this from you. I just need to know about you. So fortunately, that's why, well, not fortunately, but that's why we stuck with audio. And we had, in partnership with our photographers, they did select video here and there. And that also goes with that, is video is far more expensive to produce. It's more expensive to edit, to use and all that, and store and all that jazz. So audio was our best friend, especially dealing with how working with our honorees and warming them up, essentially.
Great. Thanks, Billy. Tracy, anything you want to add to that?
You can find the era of the
Would add is, I think once we got into a rhythm, Billy and Lily, our assistant curator, worked on gathering all of the oral histories. I didn't have a role in that. But as they were gathering them and we were reviewing them, and Billy siphoned all of the audio that he received sort of into the body copy, because when you're doing a panel, we didn't want to really exceed 250, 300 words, because, after that, people stop reading. So we wanted to make sure we could capture information and really get to the gist of this person, and, how they develop, like where they came from and how they developed what they do, which is really hard to do in 300 words. And, and I think Billy did a very good job in pulling that together. But we did get quicker about the development of the exhibitions, because oral histories were still being gathered and photography was still being gathered and the objects were still being gathered as we were putting up the first exhibit. The next one was being, so it became a cadence that we got pretty familiar with. But, like with every project, there's hiccups at the beginning. And we are trying to find our rhythm and trying to figure out, are we going to leave that quote in the body copy? Or are we going to pull it out and put it somewhere else? How many images are we going to use? The image ratio to copy. That's always a really big thing. And especially with the teasers exhibit initially, it's sort of in the crossroads of the museum. So every single person who comes in the museum is going to see this exhibit. So you need to get them. You need to pull them in. Are they just going to walk right by and go to the Motor City exhibit or the music exhibit? Or are they going to walk up and read the panel? And that, I think that balance took a bit of time. But Billy's right. Like after we had the template down, we were able to work it through. until of course we came to the big exhibit, which then again was a big, lovely problem to solve, trying to get 34 people into one space and give them all their due.
Yeah. Rebecca, did you want to add?
I was just going to say that final, all of them really, but the final exhibit in particular, when you walked in, it was almost a physical reaction, how joyful that place was. It was so crammed full of all of the spirit of these great Detroit hustlers. It just was really, it was this kind of visceral experience when you walked into it, and completely unexpected because it was so 100% different than the 4 quarterly exhibits that happened beforehand. It was very experiential, whereas the other ones really required you to stop and read and kind of experience it more from an intellectual perspective. The final exhibition was super experiential, super visceral. It really put you in the place where all these folks make the magic happen. It was great.
Yeah, awesome.
And as Tracy mentioned, we had these fantastic photographers that really did a beautiful job of, making very individual personal portraits. None of them looked the same. And those images, really helped to continue to tell the story, but it really allowed personalities to come through. I think in a way that even video would not have, right? The portraits are exceptionally powerful across the board, and they're not cookie cutter. It's not like, oh, look, they're all in the same position or the same background. It's just incredibly personal, and they were just wonderful to work with.
Yeah, some of the photos I saw were just amazing. That's so great. Well, I'm aware of time, so I have one last question, and it's really kind of a future-looking one for you, Rebecca. I think it sounds like obviously this project was received really well. It had a positive impact, right? Do you have plans to expand on this in the future, or what's next?
We have announced Hustle 2 coming at you in 2025. We are fundraising for it now. We are going to take all those lessons that we learned from the first one, the things that didn't work so well, the things that were exceptional. We're going to improve on those, and we're going to do it all over again with a whole nother batch of awesome Detroiters. And frankly, we can't wait to meet them. And meet all the people they're going to bring to the museum, just like Emmanuel said that he did. That's the point of this. And, we've kind of found this community that hasn't been recognized really by anybody in the past. And so it is just such an honor to bring them to our museum and to bring their stories to life in a venue that they maybe wouldn't have expected to show up in. So we're really looking forward to the next go around in 2025.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. Good luck with fundraising. I look forward to hearing more about it. And congratulations again to the Detroit Historical Society team, everybody who was involved in the project. Emmanuel, one of the featured stories. Let's all unmute one more time and make some noise for our our friends, our recipients in Detroit here and the Hustle Project. Congratulations once again.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
DeAndrea, any final comments from you before we wrap up here?
I just want to reiterate what a wonderful example of revolutionizing what it means to be a museum professional. So congrats to all the museum staff that have been involved, as well as, just acknowledging and sharing the stories of local people while they can appreciate it and share it with their loved ones. So congrats to the staff, congrats to all the featured entrepreneurs. And I can't emphasize how much it really resonated with the awards committee. So congratulations to everyone.
Thank you. Hope to see you in the museum soon, DeAndrea.
And
thank you so much.
To everyone listening at home or at work right now, live or joining us as a recording later, hope this event brought a little bit of joy into your world or inspiration for your next project. Thanks for joining us today and for the series of award events. I can't believe they're done. It's the last one. But what a great project to wrap on in this season of awards. And I want to wish all of our recipients, particularly the Detroit Historical Society today, all the best for your, future projects and to your communities. I wish you all the best. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to say goodbye, but I do want I want DeAndrea, Rebecca, Rachel, Tracy, Billy, and Emmanuel to stay on for a quick photo at the end. But thanks everybody. Have a great evening, and we'll see you around in the future.